After the blockbuster success of Forza Horizon 5, Playground Games has returned with a new content expansion pack for the open-world racer. Forza Horizon 5 Hot Wheels takes the player to a beautiful racing area above the clouds of Mexico, crisscrossed with curving plastic tracks. So how does this new expansion compare to Playground's last Hot Wheels outing in Forza Horizon 3? And with temporal anti-aliasing now an option, have the game's aliasing issues finally been addressed? Forza Horizon 5 Hot Wheels makes a stunning first impression. The opening expedition is a race through some of the most striking areas in the expansion, and an excellent preview of the gameplay to come. The expansion does slow down quite a bit after that first race, however, as initial events are limited to clunky B-class vehicles, though the S1 and S2 class races that open up later on are very exciting and fast. A well-tuned high-grip S2 or X-class car can really tear up the environment here and make most of the corners without braking, which feels fantastic. While working their way through all of the events and qualifiers, the player will get several Hot Wheels vehicles, all of which seem competitive in their performance class. The last of these gifts, the Bad to the Blade S2 class car, seems to be the outright fastest vehicle in the game at the moment for most tracks, with extremely low weight and plenty of power and grip. Tech-wise, there aren't very many surprises here. The same rendering technology present in Forza Horizon 5 is back in full force, although the new assets and designs highlight different strengths of Playground's engine. Tracks are very dynamic and fast, with twists and plenty of shadowed sections, which gives the Surfle-based global illumination system a workout. The more extreme contrasts and boldly colored surfaces create a more dynamic lighting presentation than the original title, even if the underlying tech appears substantially the same. Forza Horizon 5's approach to distance rendering also pays dividends here. Environmental details stretch into the far horizon, with minimal pop-in. You can essentially see across the entire map during gameplay, and distant mountains are visible and render with a relatively high level of detail. Series X in quality mode or the PC release on the highest settings preset showcase this the best, but even the 1S looks quite convincing. Though the visual downgrades present on last-gen consoles and the series consoles' performance modes appear to be the same as ever, these differences aren't quite as noticeable here as in the main game. The lower quality models and pulled-in LODs make a reappearance, but most of the visual focuses on the cars and on the plastic track surface itself, which both look similar between the consoles. Some of the less appetizing aspects of Forza Horizon 5's visuals are along for the ride as well, unfortunately. Despite being set high up in the clouds, the rendering of the upper atmosphere isn't especially convincing. The skybox is still fairly basic looking, and the clouds themselves are 2D. From a distance they look alright, but as you zoom in further their texture-based nature becomes obvious. Perhaps as a recognition of this weakness, Playground has cleared the area immediately surrounding the map of any significant cloud cover. There are a couple of other sticking points as well. The tessellated snow deformation present in Forza Horizon 4 isn't featured here, even when plowing through deep snow. There's just the slightest trace of a track left behind the player vehicle, which looks odd. Anti-aliasing is a sore spot on consoles as well, with the MSAA-driven approach delivering a sharp but unstable image, though we'll touch on this later. Overall though, this is a very strong effort, and still one of the best looking titles on current-gen consoles. But Forza Horizon 3 also received a Hot Wheels expansion, so how do these two DLCs diverge? The most obvious differences come down to the design. While both Hot Wheels expansions use the same general concept, a winding, interconnected plastic track mostly suspended above a naturalistic area, Forza Horizon 5 takes the concept much further. This new expansion features 3 distinct fantastical biomes with dramatically different scenery, while Forza Horizon 3 featured a more sedate blend of typical Australian bush and beach areas. The technology has clearly taken a massive leap between the two titles as well. The environmental details provide the clearest evidence. While both titles feature extensive off-track landscapes, Forza Horizon 5 is much improved. There's more geometry, higher quality materials, and a higher density of small-scale clutter up close. Foliage was a slight sore spot in Forza Horizon 3, as it could look a little bit flat and basic in certain lighting conditions, and its rendition here is much more satisfying as well. There are some smaller divergences elsewhere. The organic creatures present in Forza Horizon 3's Hot Wheels expansion are realized as toys here instead, which feels more appropriate given the theme. There are far more off-road sections in the Forza Horizon 5 Hot Wheels area as well, which see extensive use in several of the game's races. However, despite large changes to the environments, the cars themselves are, on a basic level, very similar between the two expansions. Some of the Hot Wheels vehicles from Forza Horizon 3 are present in Forza Horizon 5, and going side by side, the few vehicles that I looked at seemed geometrically identical. Bodywork, suspension, even loose tubing, it all appears unchanged. This is no great surprise, of course, as the Forza titles share a library of vehicle models that is gradually updated over time, like many other racing franchises. Vehicle lighting and shading does look quite different, however. The highlight here is a massive improvement in ambient shading in Forza Horizon 5, particularly around small-scale elements like hubcaps and exposed bits of engine. Ray tracing provides another obvious boost when viewing cars in Forza Vista on appropriate hardware, which provides more detailed reflections with greater coverage than the cube map solution used in Forza Horizon 3. Overall, the Hot Wheels environment in Forza Horizon 5 is much more impressive than in Forza Horizon 3, both in terms of granular detail as well as in size and scope. The upgraded hardware certainly takes some credit, but even on the last-gen machines there have been some big improvements. Last year's Hot Wheels Unleashed also showcases a Hot Wheels flavored presentation, though in the context of a full retail game. Unleashed takes the theme further and miniaturizes the background environment here as well, with most stages taking place in interior spaces like living rooms. Elsewhere, it's a reasonable looking effort, but lacks the abundance of detail and subtle shading showcased in Forza Horizon 5's Hot Wheels interpretation. On consoles, the visual pecking order in the Hot Wheels expansion is very similar, if not essentially identical, to Forza Horizon 5. Xbox One targets 1080p, One X targets 4K, Series S targets 1080p in performance mode and 1440p in quality mode, and Series X targets 4K in both modes. All consoles use dynamic resolution scaling at times, and the presentation is backed up by 4x multi-sample anti-aliasing. Environmental density and asset quality is weakest on Xbox One and strongest on the series consoles in quality mode, with the other versions falling somewhere between. Despite some very impressive sights, performance is locked to the same strong standard present in Forza Horizon 5 as well. Last-gen consoles and current-gen quality modes aim for and hit a stable 30 FPS, while the performance modes on Series S and X hit 60. I didn't spot any framerate drops across any of the consoles in my testing. Pre-rendered videos are still encoded at 30 FPS, though thankfully without any pacing issues. The only real performance annoyance is the loading times on last-gen consoles. Loading into the Hot Wheels map from Mexico took 1 minute 50 seconds on Xbox One S, which takes quite a while, although it's pretty comparable to the initial load into the game. Series X takes just 26 seconds in contrast, which feels much more reasonable. While the new Hot Wheels expansion doesn't deliver any particularly big rendering surprises, the new environments look stunning and give the Forza engine tech a thorough workout. This is an impressive looking effort, but there are a couple areas where I feel Playground Games could still push things further. Forza Horizon 5 only featured spatial anti-aliasing solutions until about a month ago, when a TAA option was added to the PC version of the game. The MSAA generally worked okay, but it didn't have coverage for the game's alpha-tested foliage, and could struggle with some of the smaller details in the cars as well. However, if you enable TAA on PC, most of the aliasing present with MSAA is eliminated, producing a much more stable image. There is still a little bit of image instability, but it's far preferable. Unfortunately, we're stuck with 4x MSAA on the console builds, which often delivers unsatisfactory results. A TAA update would be welcome here. We do have some indication that a TAA-driven reconstructive approach will be in place for future games in the Forza series, judging from the recent Forza Motorsport trailer, so it does seem like this is where the franchise is heading overall. On the PC side of things, it briefly seemed like an option for in-game ray tracing might be incoming, based on a close examination of the Forza Horizon 5 Hot Wheels announcement trailer, which appeared to show off the technique. Unfortunately, in the final release, ray tracing is still limited to the Forza Vista car viewer, with RT reflections absent from gameplay. There is a mod that enables a limited form of RT in-game as well, though new patches often break it. Again, if the tech is available, why not expose it as an option for players? Forza Horizon 5 Hot Wheels is a great visual showcase. Freed from the constraints of emulating a real-life environment, Playground has sculpted a captivating world above the clouds, with beautiful designs and massive scope. It's a striking use of the existing Forza Horizon 5 tech, and it's much more visually advanced than other Hot Wheels titles. At the same time, there are a couple of pain points in a few places, areas where Forza Horizon 5 wasn't entirely keeping pace with other big-budget games that do stick out here. The Hot Wheels expansion doesn't have tessellated terrain deformation, for instance, and despite being set above the cloud layer, it still has a pretty basic skybox. Neither is an especially big deal, of course, and probably would fall outside the scope of a typical post-release tech update. The aliasing issues are somewhat more annoying, and critically the PC release does have a TAA option that essentially fixes the problem. Perhaps this could be integrated into future console builds, at least as an option. Despite those quibbles, this is one of the most visually impressive experiences around, and is a great excuse to revisit Microsoft's open world racer. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and press the bell for YouTube notifications. Please check out the Patreon at digitalfoundry.net for exclusive and early access content. And to get in touch, just use Twitter. Thanks for watching.